Hey there, all you cool cats and kittens. My name is Ryan DeGennaro. I am a commercial real estate broker with Core Group. We handle retail sales, land, industrial, multifamily, all sorts of cool stuff like that. We also work with a wonderful group of women called the Wire Team, which handles all of our residential stuff. If any of us can help you with anything real estate related, you've got my contact information here. Please give me a holler. We would love to hear from you. The fine folks at Quest IRA have asked me to put together a kind of quick case study on a deal or two that I've done in the past with Quest IRA accounts. I might be the world's worst public speaker ever, so strap yourself in. This is sure to be super exciting. Anyway, this is not going to be a long, drawn out thing. I just want to show you the nitty gritty, the numbers of these two deals, which I thought were pretty interesting. Not your typical deal that you see every day. Now, because I like commercial, these are both commercial deals. Part of my happiness when I wake up in the morning is talking to new people every day that own commercial property that don't know what they're doing, which is why I really like to do the small and medium-sized stuff. A lot of the bigger stuff out there is handled by huge corporations or people that really specialize in running real estate. There's a lot of mom and pops who try to run strip centers and try to run warehouses who don't have a clue what they're doing and they need help. So if any of you guys are out there, especially you investor guys are out there chasing deals and you come across a commercial deal and don't know what to do with it, please give me a holler. For you lenders who are out there chasing deals and have to take some back, don't know what to do with it, give me a holler. I'm your guy. So let me tell you about the first of two deals that I have to show you. This first one I did with a partner. I found this deal, but I had a little trouble finding financing, so I brought in a partner that found 100% of the financing for me, so we ended up splitting it. This is 6923 Dumble Street. This is a 5-bay warehouse project that was built actually some years ago, I want to say in the early 70s or maybe even the late 60s. This was being run by an elderly lady that lived in Teague, Texas. And Teague is far from Houston. I don't know how far, but far enough where you can't get in the car and drive over if there's a problem. She had owned these for many, many, many years, probably since they were built, but really had failed in management of them many, many years ago and was just, I think, effectively collecting what she could. Her basis into these were probably $10,000, and just even a little bit of rent, even half of the market probably was enough to make her say, "Okay, that's enough. I'm not going to mess with it." Well, it got to the point where she couldn't collect rent from any of these people. They all knew that they could take advantage, and at some point, I think most of them stopped paying rent, which is when I came in the picture. She wanted $150,000 for these, which wasn't a terrible price, but frankly, at the time, I didn't have any desire to um, run this set of warehouses. For those of you who know Houston, I'm going to move my little camera here so you can see the zip code. That's 77021. This is a neighborhood that I kind of stumbled into and ended up owning and working with a lot of property over here. It's inside the loop, but it is near like 610 and Cullen. For those of you who know Houston, it's not someplace you really want to drive when it gets dark at night. So that said, let's talk about the deal. We got this down to $100,000 even purchase price. We bought this September 8th of 2017. What was really cool about this deal is the way we structured it, right? I got a picture of the HUD here so you can see I'm not just making these numbers up. We bought it at $100,000. My partner that figured out the financing brought in a Quest IRA account holder who went us the entire purchase price, which is something like $105,000. So the lender went the entire 100% amount needed to close, which was super cool. You go to a title company, you sign on the dotted line, and now you own property and you haven't spent a dollar. I did sign up for some debt though, and the way we set this debt up was kind of unique. Now, we knew we were going to make money on this from day one. We knew we bought into equity. The only way this thing was going to go down was if it caught on fire and we didn't have insurance. So we knew we were ahead of the game when we bought it. So what we proposed was that we would get 100% of the purchase price from the lender plus the closing costs. And whenever we sold, the lender would get their original principal back plus 20% of the new equity that was created. We also put a 1-year cap on it because our lender didn't want to be tied down to the property indefinitely. So we did a note and deed of trust with a minimal interest rate so that it looked like, a real mortgage, even though we really weren't making payments. We did that because we wanted the lender to be able to foreclose if myself or my partner got hit by a bus. Who knows what happens in the world, but we just wanted to make sure that if something bad happened to us, that they could get their money back out and it wouldn't become a huge legal issue. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe that's not the best way to do it. But that said, we were all, I don't want to say more or less friends at the time. So we all trusted each other. We felt like this was the best way to do it. So the lender ended up getting both a deed of trust and a note, which is typical like a mortgage, but we also vested them on the deed a certain percentage. So they were true owners, not just lenders on this property. Now, this property was interesting to me because it was poorly run. The management was effectively non-existent. It was, let me say, a hope and a prayer that I collect the rent this month. And some people paid and some people didn't. The problem that they had was that these are literally 5 sets of guys that are all right next to each other up against the big bad evil landlord out of town. So when one didn't pay, usually the other 4 knew about it, which is how this property frankly spiraled out of control pretty quick for this seller. And also why we got it down to $100,000. I don't think she had much money into it, so she probably, was almost all profit for her at that point. So when we bought it, there were again 5 units. The first unit was rented at $350. The second unit was vacant. The third unit was rented at $350 but was not paying. As you can see, unit 4 and unit 5 were also at $350. So not a terrible deal as is. Some of y'all will point at my monthly P&L here off to the right and say, hey, there's a bunch of stuff missing. This was really what the seller's P&L looked like. It's really effectively a $1,400 gross income every month on the average. Kind of went up or down, but she wasn't getting late fees. She wasn't getting much. In addition, frankly, she wasn't always getting the $350 that she was promised. The property taxes were, they are what they are. They were $467 a month. The water was usually right around $125. They didn't use a lot of water there. So at a $808 a month profit, or about $9,700 a year, that was a 10 cap or close to it on our purchase price, which isn't a bad deal at all. The reason that I really like this deal, not only the fact that we stepped into it for nothing, was that I saw some upside here. When you drive this area, there's actually, it's interesting. You have brand new houses next to really old, dilapidated houses, next to warehouses, next to land. I mentioned before, it's not really the nicest area in the world, but there's really nice people, and I think a really big demand for, this type of rental space over there. And we knew it. So what did we do with it? It took a little bit of time. We had it for a little under a year. We got the rents up very slowly, up on each unit, kicked 2 people out. And you see the 2 higher spaces here, unit 1 and unit 5, that we got to 500 and over were brand new tenants that we replaced with the other people we got out. The other 3 that are at 450 and 425 were the tenants that we inherited. So we were able to pretty drastically get the rent up. Just collecting the unit that wasn't paying before helped tremendously. But when you talk about another $50 or $100 in rent every month, it changes the NOI dramatically, to the point where we frankly almost doubled it. And we're actually able to pay insurance on the property that the previous seller wasn't paying. So I'm going to scoot back here. Our NOI before was $808 a month with no insurance. We went to $1,545 in a matter of 7 or 8 months, and paid all of the expenses that we really needed to pay. So frankly, I mean, just an incredible increase in revenue that we were able to milk out of this property. Now, what you don't see here that we did have in addition is we did have some property management expense. I hired a property manager because frankly, I needed a buffer between myself and these people, because we increased the rent, twice on them in a pretty short period. They didn't have leases before, so we used that to our advantage, and we bumped the rent twice. And on the second bump, we said, hey, look, you don't want this to happen again, sign a long-term lease with me. So at this point, I want to say 4 out of the 5 all had at least a 1-year lease, and some asked for more than that, which I think, if anything, actually bolstered the sales price even more. or I'm sorry, the value even more, because you have committed tenants in an environment where most tenants aren't very committed, at least a commercial space. So 18,540 a year. You see my 8 cap there. That's 8 cap on what we sold it for. Bum, bum, bum. We sold on the 7th of, what is that, June, the next year, for $240,000. Boom. I sold that myself. Core Group, give me a holler. The way that broke out on the back side was, again, a 240 sales price. The lender got their 105K of principal back, which was again, the original purchase price plus closing costs, plus their 20% in equity, which rolled out to about 25,000 out of the net profit. So we took home a little under $110,000 on that deal. Took no money out of pocket, and we got a little rent in the meantime too. Now, we didn't do anything to fix that property up. I want to say we had like a roof leak or two, and we cut a tree down. But outside of that, I think maybe our total spend on improvement was just under $5,000. And half of that was hauling off trash that people kept dumping in the curb. So this was a pure management play, value play, in the sense that we really didn't rehab this property. We didn't do anything new to it. We just did a better job as property owners. These deals are out there, guys. It's a little harder these days with everything going on, but there's a lot of these deals where people are mismanaging their property. Which brings me to the next one. This is a set of warehouses pretty much in the same area, 77021. I bought this set of warehouses in my Roth IRA. What's super cool about this deal, my Roth, when I had just moved it over to Quest, I just found this deal maybe a few months after. I didn't have but like $7,000 in it. And I know a lot of people say, how do you get your, bolster your Roth when you hardly have any money in it? Well, this is a super cool way to do it. So found this group of warehouses in a similar situation that were really poorly mismanaged. Same situation, owner out of town, can't collect, same old sob story we hear all the time. They wanted 125, I believe, for this originally. We got them down to 75,000 on it. I was able to get the entire deal seller financed by the seller, save a $5,000 down payment, which effectively paid the closing costs. And, I think it put maybe a couple $1,000 in her pocket. This deal was different in that I bought it again myself in my Roth, and it was completely financed by the seller instead of a third party. So my Roth actually owned this contract and this deal. The way we ended up structuring it again was 5,000 down. There was a $72K note to the seller at 10% interest over 2 years. No equity participation in this deal. I told the seller, look, you know what, 10% on this money is pretty close to what you're getting. I'm a real estate broker. Here's my personal financial statement. You're not going to have a problem collecting from me. You don't have to worry about collecting anymore. You'll collect from me. I'll collect from them. If they don't pay, it's my problem, not yours. So the seller liked that. When I bought it, again, now this is 3 different warehouses, 3 different property addresses, so a little different than the last one. 6309 New York was getting $300 a month. That was a 1,600 square foot warehouse. 6531 was $450 a month, which is a 3,600 square foot warehouse. And 7009 New York is an interesting property. I don't honestly know how many square feet are usable over there. I've only been in it one time. I want to say they're maybe occupying about 2,000 square feet, even though it shows about 4,000 or so on the tax roll. All 3 of these properties were really beat up. They were just not attractive. But that said, between the 3 properties, I brought in $1,350 a month. Same situation as the last one. The owner really wasn't paying anything they were supposed to be paying other than, the property tax. And even then, I don't believe at the time they were paying the property tax. So the NOI on their P&L was about a 14 cap. If you put in, you impute the other expenses that should have been there, it was definitely lower. But this was a good deal, and I knew it on the onset. So kind of the same as the last one as well. We never did anything to it. Ended up eventually cleaning out the tenant on the smallest property. which is again an 1,800 square foot warehouse. Um, Sold it for $62,000 about a year later. At that time, my note balance was only 51,000 and some change. So a little time had passed, but what I did, instead of taking the profit from that rent, that 14% cap rate that should have gone in my pocket, I put all of that back into the note. So by the time I found a buyer for 6309 New York, my note had been paid down pretty dramatically. So by the time I sold it, again, we got 62,000. After the closing costs and the note and everything was paid, I got about $7,800 that went back to my Roth IRA. But the super cool thing is I still own those other two properties at 6531 and 7009 New York. I didn't do anything to any of these properties, nothing. Just found a interesting deal and put it together. And the very cool thing about this is now I have two free and clear properties sitting on my Roth, contributing to it every month, tax free. I don't pay any tax on any of it. It's beautiful. Now, the one thing that I did have to pay tax on was when I sold this warehouse at 6309 New York, I had to pay what's called UBIT. UBIT is effectively a tax on the money that I forced into my Roth, the equity that I forced into my Roth. I'm not a CPA. I don't want to explain it any further than that. But you know, it's the way that the government, I guess, recaptures the tax that you would have got had you actually just done the $5,000, you know, or 5,500 or 6,000 or whatever it is maximum contribution to your Roth. I forced a lot of value into my Roth when I paid that note off, so I did get taxed on that. But that's fine. You know, normally you can only put $6,000 a year into your Roth. I went from having $7,000, literally just $7,000 in cash, to about $200,000 in free and clear real estate in about a year and a half. So, you know, just a super cool way to build your retirement quickly. Again, guys, my name is Ryan DeGennaro. Please think of me next time you find a commercial deal that you don't know what to do with, but you think you may have some equity there. I'd love to participate in it with you. If you can think of anything I can help you with, please give me a shout. Thank you, Quest. I appreciate it.